funny thing is, the suitcase he used to throw me away carried the only thing he forgot to take from me.
At 58, Nora Bellamy found out her marriage was over by trying a key that no longer worked. One grocery bag in her hand, one old suitcase on the porch, one trash bag of shoes beside it, and behind the locked door stood the man she had spent nearly 30 years serving, helping, forgiving, and shrinking herself for. Ray did not shout. He did not explain. He spoke through the door like her life was already outside where it belonged. "You need to go." Across the street, a curtain moved. Someone saw. Nobody came. Then Nora checked her phone. 5%. Her bank card had already been cut off. Nearly 30 years of marriage had been reduced to what Ray decided could fit in one suitcase. But Ray made one mistake. He never checked the bottom. Wrapped inside her late aunt's handkerchief was an old brass key with a faded tag that read, "Farm Door." That key led Nora to a forgotten farmhouse outside Herman, Missouri, a house everyone called worthless. But hidden inside that broken place was a county envelope, and on one page was the name Ray thought had no power left. Nora Jean Bellamy. And if stories like this still make you feel something, if you believe a woman's years, sacrifices, and quiet suffering should count for more than one suitcase left on a porch, subscribe now, because Nora's story is not over, and leaving too early is exactly what Ray expected everyone to do. Ray believed the suitcase was the end of Nora Bellamy's story. But before she ever found the brass key inside it, Nora had to survive the moment he left that suitcase on the porch. She had only been gone 40 minutes. Milk, bread, 2 cans of soup, a small bottle of aspirin she almost put back because Ray always checked receipts. That was how ordinary the afternoon had been. Then Nora came home and saw the porch light burning in daylight. Ray never turned it on before dark. The suitcase stood beside the door, upright, zipped, waiting. Beside it sat a black trash bag tied tight at the top. One of Nora's brown shoes pushed against the plastic, bent at the heel. She stopped at the bottom step. For a few seconds, her mind protected her from what her eyes already knew. Then she climbed the porch and tried her key. It slid in halfway. Stopped. She pulled it out. Tried again. Nothing. Behind the door, the house was silent. Not empty. Silent. Nora knocked once. Then twice. Ray's footsteps crossed the living room slowly. He did not open the door. "Nora," he said, "don't make this harder." The sentence was too calm, too ready. This had not happened in anger. It had been planned. Nora looked down at the suitcase. Her old one. The one from the back of the closet. The one that held old papers, funeral cards, and things Ray called clutter. Now it held whatever he had decided she could keep. Across the street, a curtain moved. Next door, a blind bent slightly. People saw. Nobody came. Nora kept her voice low. "My medicine is inside." A pause. Front pocket. She crouched and opened the suitcase. Her medicine was there. So were 2 sweaters, 3 blouses, her worn nightgown, and underclothes folded with a neatness that almost looked kind. Almost. That was the part that made her chest tighten. He had taken his time. Her phone buzzed. 5%. She opened her banking app with stiff fingers. The screen loaded, then rejected her. Access denied. Nora stared at those words. Ray had changed the lock, cut off the money, packed her medicine, and left her outside, where the whole street could quietly watch her disappear. For 1 second, her hand lifted toward the door. The same door she had cleaned 2 days ago. The same brass knob she had polished every Saturday. Then she lowered her hand. She would not beg through a door Ray had already decided she did not deserve to open. Nora lifted the suitcase. The handle bit into her palm. The trash bag dragged against her leg as she stepped down from the porch. Behind her, the door stayed closed, and Ray, certain he had stripped her life down to one suitcase, never knew he had packed the one thing that could undo him. The suitcase was heavier than Nora expected, not because Ray had packed much, but because every step away from that porch made it feel less like luggage and more like proof. She drove without knowing where she was going, past the grocery store, past the little Methodist church with the cracked bell tower, past the school where she had spent 23 years serving lunch to children who still waved when they saw her in town. At the edge of a closed laundromat parking lot, Nora stopped. The engine ticked softly. The streetlights flickered on. And for the first time that day, no one was watching. That should have made it easier to cry. It didn't. She just sat there with both hands on the wheel, feeling the shape of the old house still inside her body. The kitchen sink, the hallway rug, the pantry shelf she had painted white because Ray said it did not matter, and she wanted one small thing to look clean. For nearly 30 years, Nora had treated that house like a marriage. Ray had treated it like property. That difference had taken her too long to understand. Her phone had almost no battery left. Still, she did not call him. Instead, she reached for the suitcase. The zipper caught twice before it opened. Inside were the clothes she had already seen, folded too neatly, chosen too coldly. Then her fingers touched paper. Funeral cards, old receipts, a small recipe card written in Aunt Lottie's slanted hand. Nora went still. Aunt Lottie had been the only person in her family. Ray never managed to make small in Nora's memory. He had tried. He called her odd, stubborn, a woman who saved junk because she had nothing worth keeping. But Aunt Lottie had not been junk. She was the kind of woman who kept spare buttons in baby food jars, remembered who owed whom an apology, and never threw away a key until she knew what door it belonged to. Nora remembered the day after the funeral. Rain tapping the roof of Ray's truck, her black dress damp at the hem, a neighbor pressing a white handkerchief into Nora's palm and saying Lottie wanted her to have it. Ray had glanced over and laughed. What's that supposed to open? A haunted shed? Nora had said nothing. By then, she had learned that defending what mattered only gave Ray another place to aim. But Aunt Lottie's warning came back now. Quiet, strange, and suddenly heavier than before. Don't lose what people leave you just because somebody else calls it worthless. At the time, Nora thought she meant keepsakes. A quilt, a photograph, a Bible page with family names. Now, under that weak laundromat light, Nora unfolded the handkerchief. Something cold slipped into her palm. A brass key. Old, dull, heavier than it looked. A faded tag hung from it by a thin piece of thread. 2 words. Farm door. Nora stared at them. She knew the farm only in pieces. A place outside Herman. A house nobody visited. Land the family spoke of with irritation, not affection. Too damaged to sell. Too expensive to fix. Too much trouble after Lottie died. Ray used to smirk whenever it came up. Your people sure know how to leave behind problems. Nora turned the key over. For the first time all day, Ray's voice did not fill the whole space inside her. Aunt Lottie's did. She searched the suitcase again. Beneath the recipe card was an old envelope, soft at the folds. On the back, in Lottie's handwriting, was a road name Nora had not heard in years. No explanation, no promise, just an address. And suddenly, the suitcase Ray meant as a final insult had become a map. Nora looked through the windshield at the dark road ahead. She had nowhere safe to sleep. Almost no money. And one key to a place everyone said was worthless. But if Aunt Lottie had kept that key waiting all these years, what else had she left behind that farm door? By morning, Nora had learned something about fear. It did not always stop you. Sometimes, it rode beside you. She left the laundromat parking lot before the town fully woke, with Aunt Lottie's envelope on the passenger seat and the brass key tucked inside her coat pocket. The road toward Herman, Missouri looked ordinary at first. Gas stations, small houses, a feed store with faded signs in the window, open fields under a pale sky. But the farther Nora drove, the quieter everything became. The houses spread apart, the pavement narrowed, the trees leaned close to the road, their bare branches shifting in the wind. She almost turned around twice, not because she wanted Ray, because his voice still knew how to sound like common sense. You don't even know if that place is standing. You're chasing junk because you have nowhere else to go. Nora tightened her hands on the steering wheel. Aunt Lottie had kept the key. That had to mean something. The address led her past a small cemetery, then onto a gravel road with no painted lines. Her car bumped forward slowly. Weeds brushed the lower doors. The mailbox appeared first, rusted, leaning toward the ditch. No name on it, just a faded number. Nora stopped the car. Beyond the mailbox, The farmhouse sat back from the road, low and tired beneath the gray morning. It was worse than she expected. The porch sagged in the middle. One shutter hung crooked. The white paint had peeled away in strips. Tall grass pressed against the steps. A broken screen door shifted whenever the wind touched it. Nora stayed in the car. This was the kind of place Ray would have laughed at, not loudly, just with that small look that made her feel foolish before he even spoke. He would have called it family trash. He would have said she drove all this way to prove his point. For a moment, the farmhouse did not feel like an answer. It felt like another insult. Nora looked down at the key in her palm, then at the house, then at the empty road behind her. There was nowhere better waiting. So she opened the car door. Cold air touched her face. Gravel crunched under her shoes. She took the suitcase from the back seat, but left the trash bag of shoes in the car. Carrying both felt like admitting too much. The first porch step groaned under her weight. Nora froze, waited. The house held. She moved carefully to the door. The brass key slid into the lock. For one long second, it would not turn. Her chest tightened. Then she pressed harder. The lock gave with a deep, stubborn click. The door opened. Dust breathed out. Inside, the farmhouse smelled like damp wood, old paper, and rooms that had gone too long without a voice. Nora stepped in. The entryway was narrow. Wallpaper curled from the walls. A calendar hung crooked near the kitchen, still turned to a month from years ago. In the front room, a sheet-covered sofa sagged under its own age. No lights worked. The kitchen tap coughed once, then went quiet. Near the pantry, scratches marked the lower wood. Animals had been there. Maybe recently. Nora set the suitcase on a chair and looked around. This was not rescue. Not yet. It was cold, broken, unwelcoming. Another place that seemed to say no one had prepared for her. She stood there until the silence grew too heavy. Then she found an old broom in the mudroom and began to sweep. Not because she believed the farmhouse could save her, because sweeping was one thing she could still do without asking anyone's permission. Dust lifted around her shoes. Dead leaves scraped across the floor. The broom struck the base of a built-in kitchen drawer and stopped. Nora looked down. One drawer sat lower than the others, swollen shut, its wooden pull darkened by years of dust, and beneath its edge, something pale showed through a tear in the old shelf paper. The pale edge under the shelf paper did not explain anything, but it was enough to stop Nora from sweeping. She stood in the farmhouse kitchen with the broom still in her hand, staring at the built-in drawer near the floor. It sat lower than the others, not fully open, not properly closed, stuck in between, as if something inside had been waiting longer than the wood could hold. Wind touched the broken screen door behind her. The house creaked once, then went still. Nora set the broom against the counter and crouched. Her fingers closed around the dusty wooden pull. She tugged. Nothing. She tugged again. The drawer gave a low wooden groan, then held tight. For a moment, she almost left it alone. She was cold, hungry, running on a dead phone, a useless bank card, and whatever courage had survived the night. A stuck drawer in a forgotten kitchen should not have mattered. But the pale edge was still there. Paper. Not dust. Not wood. Paper. Nora opened the drawer above it and found a butter knife with a cracked handle. She worked it into the swollen seam. Old paint flaked loose. The wood resisted like it had been sealed by years of silence. Then, the drawer jerked open. Nora caught herself against the counter. Inside were brittle seed packets, a rusted measuring spoon, a pencil worn almost flat, and a few dead ladybugs curled in the corner. Ordinary things. Forgotten things. But beneath them, the shelf paper had bubbled at the edges. Nora lifted one corner. It tore softly. Underneath was an envelope, thick, yellowed, pressed flat against the bottom of the drawer. Not dropped there. Hidden there. Nora looked toward the doorway. No one stood there. Still, the kitchen felt less empty than before. She slid the envelope free. Across the front, in faded ink, were the words, "Land use file, occupancy papers, keep in house." Nora's mouth went dry. These were not recipes, not photographs, not sentimental scraps Aunt Lottie had saved because she could not let anything go. These were official words, county words, The kind of words Ray always said were better left to people who understood them. Nora carried the envelope to the kitchen table and sat down. The chair rocked beneath her. For a second, she only held the envelope in both hands. She thought of Ray's locked door, the suitcase, the neighbors watching, the bank app rejecting her like she no longer existed. Then she opened the flap. Inside was a folded property map, a clipped stack of papers, a life estate agreement, a land use file, pages with seals, dates, signatures, and names she only half recognized. Aunt Lottie's name appeared twice. Another family name appeared beneath it. Then Nora found a page titled Successor Occupant Designation. She leaned closer. Her eyes moved down the paper and stopped. Typed cleanly in black ink was her full legal name, Nora Jean Bellamy. For several seconds, she did not move. The house seemed to quiet around her. She touched the letters with one finger, not because she understood what they meant, because after a day of being locked out, cut off, and left with whatever fit inside one suitcase, her name was here, printed, kept, waiting. Inside the very place everyone had called worthless. Nora looked back at the envelope. Keep in house. Aunt Lottie had not forgotten these papers. She had hidden them where only someone with the key could find them. But that raised a colder question. Who had she been hiding them from? Nora gathered the papers carefully, afraid to crease them. The folded map slipped sideways, and something on the back caught her eye. A sentence, written in Aunt Lottie's slanted hand. If Nora comes, show her the county first. Nora stared at those words until the kitchen blurred. Aunt Lottie had expected her, and whatever these papers meant, someone at the county office was supposed to know. Nora did not sleep much after finding the papers. She folded them back into the envelope 3 different times, then opened it again. The words did not change. Nora Jean Bellamy. Her name stayed there, printed on a page that looked too official to ignore and too confusing to trust. By morning, she had wrapped the envelope in a dish towel and placed it on the passenger seat like something fragile. The farmhouse door locked behind her with a sound that felt different now. Not safe. Not yet, but no longer empty. The drive into Herman felt longer than it had the day before. Nora kept glancing at the envelope every few minutes, half afraid it would disappear before she reached town. County offices had always made her uneasy. Counters, forms, people speaking quickly. Ray had loved places like that because they gave him a stage. He would lean forward, use the right terms, sign in the right boxes, and later tell Nora she would have been lost without him. For years, she believed him. That morning, she parked outside the county building and sat with both hands on the steering wheel. A woman walked past, carrying a folder. A man came out talking on his phone. The world kept moving, like Nora was not about to find out whether her name meant anything at all. She picked up the envelope. Then she went inside. The young clerk at the front desk looked polite but uncertain when Nora explained the farmhouse, Aunt Lottie's name, and the note on the back of the map. He turned the papers once, then twice. "I'm not sure what you're asking for," he said. Nora felt heat rise in her face. That old urge came back immediately. Apologize. Fold the papers. Leave before she looked foolish. But Aunt Lottie's sentence was still in her mind. Show her the county first. So Nora held her place. "I need to know why my name is on those papers," she said. The clerk opened his mouth, but a woman from the desk behind him looked up. She was older, with silver hair tucked behind one ear and reading glasses hanging from a chain. "What road did you say?" she asked. Nora told her. The woman became very still. Then she reached for the envelope. "I'm Mrs. Harlan," she said. "Let me see those." She did not rush. That was the first kindness. She read the front page, then the map, then the successor occupant page. When she saw Nora's name, she read it once, paused, and read it again. Nora watched her face, searching for disappointment, searching for the moment Mrs. Harlan would say it was old, useless, expired, misunderstood. Instead, the older woman sat back slowly. "Lottie kept them in the house," she murmured. Nora's fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. "You knew my aunt?" Mrs. Harlan gave a small nod. Everybody in records knew Lottie. She asked questions people did not like answering. That sentence opened a quiet space between them. Nora did not know what to put in it. Mrs. Harlan turned the page toward her and tapped the line with one careful finger. "This name here is not decoration." Nora looked down. Her own name seemed almost unfamiliar. "What does it mean?" "It means you need proper legal advice," Mrs. Harlan said. "But from what I'm seeing, you may have a recorded right tied to occupancy of that farmhouse." Nora blinked. Occupancy? A right to stay there. Possibly more than that, depending on how this land use file was recorded. The room seemed to narrow. Mrs. Harlan continued gently. "The surrounding acreage may not be transferable without addressing your interest. If someone wants that land clear for sale, your name becomes a problem for them." A problem. Nora had been called many things in her life. Quiet, sensitive, confused, too trusting. Never a problem to people who wanted land. Mrs. Harlan made copies. She wrote down the number for legal aid. Then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Do not sign anything. Not for Ray, not for family, not for anyone who says they're helping." Nora looked up sharply. Ray's name had not been on the papers she showed. Mrs. Harlan noticed. Her expression changed just enough to make Nora's chest tighten. "Lottie worried he'd make you small enough to hand things away," she said. Nora carried the copies back to her car with both hands. Outside, the morning had turned bright, but she felt colder than before. Because the papers meant something. And if Aunt Lottie had warned the county about Ray, then Ray may not have been the only one waiting for Nora to stay unaware. Her phone buzzed before she started the engine. A text from Ray. "Heard you went out to that old place. We need to talk." Ray's message sat on Nora's phone, like a hand against the back of her neck. "Heard you went out to that old place. We need to talk." She read it once. Then again. The words were simple, but the timing was not. Ray had locked her out, cut off her money, packed her medicine like he was closing a drawer he no longer needed. Now, suddenly, he wanted to talk. Nora sat in the county parking lot with the envelope on her lap, and Mrs. Harlan's warning still fresh in her ears. "Do not sign anything." Her thumb hovered over Ray's name. For almost 30 years, answering him had been instinct. If Ray called, she picked up. If Ray asked, she explained. If Ray sounded irritated, she softened herself before he could sharpen. But this time, she did not answer. She placed the phone face down on the passenger seat. Then it buzzed again. Not Ray. Denise. Nora stared at the name. Her cousin Denise had not called in months. Not when Nora's divorce became ugly. Not when Ray began telling people Nora was struggling. Not when Nora quietly stopped showing up to family gatherings because it was easier than explaining the bruises no one could see. Now, Denise was calling. Nora let it ring. A voicemail appeared. Then a text. "Nora, call me. It's about the farm. There may be a buyer, and we don't need confusion right now." Nora's stomach tightened. Confusion. That word again. A word people used when they wanted her quiet before she asked the right question. She drove back to the farmhouse with both phones, messages unread, but not unfelt. The gravel lane sounded different beneath her tires now. Yesterday, the place had looked abandoned. Today, it felt watched. The farmhouse stood where she left it. Still sagging, still weathered, still quiet. But Nora no longer saw only broken boards. She saw the locked drawer, the envelope, her name, Aunt Lottie's warning. She parked close to the porch and carried the papers inside. The first thing she did was hide the originals in the bottom of her suitcase. Beneath the lining, Ray had never bothered to check. Then she placed the copies on the kitchen table. Only copies. That afternoon, Ray called 3 more times. By the third call, his voicemail changed. The first one was stiff. The second one sounded irritated. The third one sounded almost kind. That was the one that frightened Nora most. He said the farmhouse was unsafe. He said she was alone. He said old properties were full of problems, and people could take advantage of women who did not understand paperwork. He said he could drive out and look things over. Nora listened to the message once. Then, saved it. Not deleted. Saved. The next morning, Denise arrived in a gray sedan with a man in a navy suit. Nora saw them from the kitchen window and felt her body remember old habits. Straighten the room. Apologize for the mess. Offer coffee. Make everyone comfortable. Instead, she stayed still. Denise stepped out first, wearing sunglasses, though the sky was cloudy. The man carried a leather folder and looked at the farmhouse the way people look at something they have already priced. Nora opened the door, but did not step aside. Denise smiled too quickly. Nora, we've all been worried. That was the first lie. The man introduced himself as someone helping the family handle property complications. His voice was gentle, too gentle, the kind of gentle that expects gratitude for not being rude. He said there had been discussions, old family intentions, a possible buyer, a chance to settle everything cleanly before trouble started. Nora listened. She heard what he said, and what he avoided. Not once did he ask where she had slept. Not once did Denise ask if she had eaten. Not once did either of them say Aunt Lottie's name with love. Then Denise removed her sunglasses. Nora, don't start acting like you understand all this. The words landed hard, because they sounded like Ray wearing another face. Nora looked at the two people standing below her porch. The cousin who had vanished until the land mattered. The man who came prepared to make pressure sound polite. Her hand tightened around the doorframe, but her voice stayed even. Put it in writing. The man paused. Denise's mouth opened slightly. Nora repeated it. Anything about this property. Put it in writing. For the first time since Ray left her outside, Nora watched someone else struggle for what to say. The man placed a business card on the porch rail. Denise stared at Nora like she had become inconvenient. Then they left. Nora waited until the gray sedan disappeared down the gravel lane before she picked up the card. On the back, beneath the printed number, someone had written 3 words in blue ink. Release needed fast. The words on the back of the business card stayed with Nora all night. Release needed fast. Not requested. Not discussed. Needed, as if someone had already planned the ending. And Nora was only a signature standing in the way. By morning, she had placed the card inside the folder with the copies. She wrote the date beneath it, then the time Denise arrived, then the kind of car, then the exact words she remembered. It felt strange at first, writing things down. For years, Ray had made her feel foolish for needing notes. Now the notebook made her feel steadier. Around 10, an old pickup slowed near the mailbox. Nora stepped toward the window, heart tightening. But it was not Ray. The truck belonged to Walt Grissom, the neighbor from 2 farms over. Nora remembered him only faintly from Aunt Lottie's funeral. A tall man with a weathered face and hands that looked permanently shaped by work. He did not come all the way to the porch at first. He stopped near the lane and lifted one hand. Respectful. Waiting. Nora opened the door. Miss Bellamy? He called. Nora is Fiend. He nodded toward the pasture behind the house. Saw Denise's car yesterday. Figured you might need to know what they're circling. That word made Nora still. Circling. Walt did not ask to come inside. He stood near the porch steps and looked toward the back field. Lottie used to say the house fooled people, he said. Made them look at the wrong thing. Nora followed his gaze. From the porch, all she saw was tall grass, a few leaning fence posts, and a line of trees beyond the rise. What wrong thing? The house. He said it plainly. Then he offered to show her. Nora put the folder under her arm and followed him around the side yard. The grass brushed her calves. Burrs caught on her pants. Behind the farmhouse, the land opened wider than she expected. The pasture rolled back toward a tree line, then narrowed into a strip that ran along an old service road. Walt pointed with one gloved hand. That access strip is what folks notice now. Nora looked at it. It did not look special. Just a rough path half hidden by weeds. Walt seemed to understand. Storage companies been looking around since the county started talking about widening Route C. Cheap land becomes useful when it touches the right road. Nora felt the folder grow heavier under her arm. Ray had called it junk. Denise had called it confusion. The lawyer had called it a complication. But none of them had called it worthless yesterday. Walt walked farther toward the back fence. Nora followed slowly, watching where she stepped. Near a low patch of grass, he stopped. There, pressed into the damp soil, were tire marks, fresh enough to hold shape. Beside them stood 2 small survey flags, bright orange, too clean to be old. Nora stared at them. I didn't put those there. Walt's jaw tightened. Didn't think you did. The wind moved across the pasture, bending the grass in long silver waves. For the first time, Nora saw the farmhouse differently. The broken porch was only the face of it. The real story was behind the house, hidden from the road, quiet enough for people to plan around. Nora crouched and took a picture of the tire marks with her phone, then the flags, then the access strip, Her hands shook, but she kept going. One photo, then another. Proof. Walt watched her with quiet approval. Lottie would have liked that, he said. Nora stood. Liked what? You looking before trusting. That stayed with her. Back in the kitchen, Nora opened a clean notebook and wrote 2 words on the first page. Farm record. Under it, she wrote everything. Denise. Lawyer. Release needed fast. Tire marks. Survey flags. Access strip. Route C. Then she stopped. Because at the bottom of the page, beneath her notes, someone had already written something long before her. A faint pencil mark pressed into the old table, almost hidden under scratches. 3 words. Backline matters. The words on the table were barely there. Backline matters. Nora ran her fingers over the faint pencil marks, feeling the shallow grooves Aunt Lottie, or someone before her, had pressed into the wood. Backline. The access strip. The survey flags. The tire marks. The part of the land nobody mentioned until Nora found her own name in the drawer. She did not understand all of it yet, but she understood enough to be afraid of signing anything. That afternoon, Nora drove to the legal aid office in town with the county envelope tucked inside a plain grocery bag. She did not want anyone seeing it through the car window, not the originals, not anymore. The waiting room smelled faintly of coffee and copier paper. Nora sat with the bag on her lap, both hands folded over it. When her name was called, she stood too quickly. The attorney was younger than she expected. His name was Aaron Pike. Rolled sleeves, tired eyes, a careful voice. He did not rush her. That helped. Nora laid the papers on his desk one at a time. The life estate agreement, the land use file, the property map, the successor occupant page, then the photo of the tire marks and the orange flags. Aaron read quietly. Once. Then again. That second reading made Nora's stomach tighten. Finally, he looked up. Mrs. Bellamy, this needs a full title review, but you were right not to sign anything. Nora held very still. He tapped the successor page gently. This does not mean you own every acre outright. I don't want to overpromise that. Her heart dipped. Then he continued. But it does mean your name cannot be treated like it doesn't exist. Nora looked down at the paper. Aaron turned the map toward her. This occupancy interest and these land use restrictions may complicate any transfer connected to that back line. If someone needs a clean release, your signature matters. Her signature. For years, Nora had signed where Ray pointed. Tax forms, bank slips, insurance updates, documents she barely had time to read because Ray would sigh if she slowed down. Now Aaron was telling her that her signature had value, not sentimental value, legal value. He wrote instructions on a yellow sheet. Keep the originals safe. Make copies. Document every contact. Do not speak alone with anyone pressuring you. Do not sign a release. Do not let anyone remove papers from the farmhouse. Nora read the list twice before placing it in her folder. At the door, Aaron stopped her. One more thing. Open an account Ray cannot touch. Today, if you can. The words landed quietly, but they changed the shape of the afternoon. Nora went to a local bank before she could lose nerve. She sat across from a teller and answered questions in a voice that grew steadier with each one. Name, address, identification, initial deposit. Not much, but hers. When the teller slid the temporary card across the desk, Nora stared at it longer than she meant to. A small plastic card. A simple thing, but Ray's name was nowhere on it. Back at the farmhouse, Walt was waiting near the mailbox with another man in a work jacket. Caleb Rusk, a farmer from a few miles over. He needed temporary hay storage and had heard the back pasture was dry. Nora almost said yes too quickly. Money was thin. The phone bill was due. One window still had cardboard taped over the crack, but Aaron's list was folded in her pocket. So she said, "Put the terms in writing. I'll have them reviewed." Caleb did not laugh. He did not look irritated. He simply nodded. That's fair. Nora felt something loosen in her chest. Not everyone took offense when a woman protected herself. 3 days later, after Aaron reviewed the agreement, Nora signed it at the kitchen table, slowly, reading every line. The first check arrived before the week ended. It was not large. It did not fix the roof or erase the fear, but it bought groceries, paid part of the phone bill, and put money into an account Ray could not reach. That evening, Nora set the check receipt beside the brass key on the windowsill. For the first time, the farmhouse had given something back. Then headlights swept across the kitchen wall. Slow, deliberate. A truck stopped near the mailbox. Nora looked through the curtain and saw Ray stepping out. Ray did not come to the porch right away. He stood beside his truck with one hand on the open door, looking at the farmhouse like he was seeing it for the first time. Not the broken steps, not the peeling paint, not the crooked gutter. His eyes moved past all of that, toward the pasture, toward the back line, toward the part of the land he had never once called worthless to Nora's face. That told her enough. Nora stayed behind the curtain, her heart beating hard enough to make her hand tremble against the fabric. Then she remembered Aaron's yellow sheet. Document every contact. Do not speak alone if pressured. Do not let anyone remove papers. She picked up her phone and started recording before she opened the door. Not to be dramatic, to be safe. Ray smiled when he saw her. A small, careful smile. The kind he used in banks, waiting rooms, and church parking lots when he wanted strangers to think he was the reasonable one. Nora, he said, I've been worried. The word almost made her laugh. Worried. He had not worried when her card stopped working. He had not worried when she stood outside with her medicine in the suitcase. He had not worried when the neighbors watched her carry a trash bag down the steps. But now, standing in front of a farmhouse with a useful back line, Ray had found concern. Nora kept one hand on the door. You can say what you came to say from there. His smile thinned. I'm not your enemy. She said nothing. That silence made him shift his weight. He glanced toward the kitchen window, as if measuring whether he could see papers on the table. This place isn't safe for you, he said. Old wiring, bad roof, no neighbors close enough. You don't know what people might try. Nora listened. The old Nora would have answered every sentence. Explained the water was working now. Explained Walt came by. Explained she had legal help. Explained she was not as alone as he thought. But explanations had always been doors Ray walked through. So she left them closed. Ray took one step toward the porch. Nora did not move aside. I can help you handle this, he said. Whatever papers Lottie left, whatever Denise is pushing, you don't want to get tangled up in things you don't understand. There it was, the old shape of him. Not anger first, concern first, then doubt, then control. Nora felt her fingers tighten on the doorframe, but her voice stayed quiet. Any matter about this property can go through my attorney. Ray blinked, only once, but she saw it. The word attorney had reached him differently than the word no ever had. Your attorney, he repeated. Yes. You really think some free lawyer understands your family better than I do? Nora looked at him then, really looked, at the man who had packed her nightgown into a suitcase like he was being decent, the man who had left her medicine in the front pocket so he could still call himself fair, the man who believed cruelty stopped being cruelty if it came folded neatly. You don't understand my family, she said. You only laughed at what they left. His face changed. Not much, but enough. The careful smile disappeared. This is exactly what I was afraid of, he said. People are filling your head. Nora gave a small nod. Not agreement. Recognition. That was how Ray always turned a woman's new knowledge into someone else's manipulation. I'm done talking tonight. She began to close the door. Ray stepped closer. Nora. One word. Sharp now. The voice that used to stop her in kitchens, stores, hallways, and parking lots. But this was not his hallway. Not his kitchen. Not his porch. Nora held the door steady. You locked me out once, she said. You don't get to decide which doors open for you now. The word surprised even her. Ray stared at her. For a moment, the only sound was the wind moving through the grass behind him. Then his eyes dropped to the lock. A new lock Walt had helped her install that morning. Ray noticed it, and Nora saw the moment he understood. He did not have a key. He looked back toward the pasture one last time, then turned and walked to his truck without another word. Nora waited until his taillights disappeared down the gravel road before she closed the door. Her knees weakened the second the latch clicked. She stood there in the dark kitchen, one hand still on the knob, breathing through the shaking. Then her phone buzzed. Aaron Pike. She answered. His voice was calm, but serious. Nora, I reviewed the response from Denise's lawyer. The buyer is pausing. Nora closed her eyes. Aaron continued. They can't move cleanly around your recorded interest. Not without dealing with you." For a moment, Nora could not speak. The farmhouse creaked softly around her, the same broken house Ray had come to manage, the same door he could not open. Then Aaron said one more thing. "There's also something odd in the older file. A note from Lottie. I think you need to see it before anyone else does." Aaron brought the note 2 days later. Not by email, not through the mail. He drove out to the farmhouse himself and handed Nora a copy at the kitchen table, the same table where she had first opened the county envelope with shaking hands. The paper was thin, almost fragile. Aunt Lottie's handwriting leaned across the page in uneven lines, darker in some places, faint in others, like the pen had been running out, but the woman holding it had refused to stop. Nora did not read it quickly. Some things asked to be received slowly. Lottie had written that people would always judge the farmhouse by the porch first. They would see the peeling paint, the broken screen, the old roof, the crooked steps. They would call it a burden because that was easier than admitting they had ignored what sat behind it. Then Nora reached the line that made her place one hand over her mouth. "If Nora ever comes to this house, do not let anyone rush her. She has been rushed into doubting herself long enough." Nora closed her eyes. For years, she had thought no one noticed. Not the small corrections. Not the way Ray answered questions meant for her. Not the way he laughed when she mentioned family. Not the way she grew quieter in rooms where she used to have opinions. But Aunt Lottie had noticed. Quietly, carefully, long before Nora had the words for it. The note continued. Lottie had kept the papers in the farmhouse because papers could be lost in drawers, twisted in family arguments, or handled by people who liked handling things that did not belong to them. But a house could hold a secret better, especially if people were too proud to step inside it. Nora read the final lines twice. The back line matters. The access will matter more later. If they come asking for a release, make them ask Nora. She is not extra. She is the reason the line holds. There it was. The sentence Ray would have hated. Denise, too. Maybe all of them. Nora was not extra. Not confusion. Not a woman who had wandered into paperwork too old for her to understand. She was the reason the line held. Aaron explained the rest gently. The buyer had not vanished, but the easy path had closed. Denise could not move the land around Nora. Ray had no authority there. Any future negotiation would have to recognize Nora's interest, her occupancy, and her right to independent advice. It was not a lottery win. It was not a fortune hidden under floorboards. It was better than that in a quieter way. It was safety with paper behind it. It was a roof she could fight for. It was a name no one could slide past without consequence. By winter, the farmhouse still looked old from the road, but it no longer looked abandoned. The grass along the lane had been cut back. The mailbox stood straighter. The porch had 3 new boards, pale against the weathered wood, but solid beneath Nora's feet. The kitchen light worked. The water ran clear after a few seconds. A small row of jars sat on the windowsill, holding green onions, mint, and basil she was trying to keep alive through the cold. The old drawer beneath the counter stayed empty. Nora could not bring herself to put spoons in it. Some spaces deserved to be remembered. Ray stopped calling after Aaron sent one final letter. Denise called once more, her voice tight and careful, saying the family still wanted to resolve things. Nora listened, took notes, then told her anything further could be sent in writing. She did not shake afterward. That was how she knew something had changed. The pasture payment came at the beginning of each month. It was modest, sometimes almost too modest, but it paid the phone bill, bought groceries, replaced the cracked kitchen window, helped with fuel. For the first time in years, Nora could look at money without feeling Ray standing behind her. Walt still came by sometimes with tools in the back of his truck, and no need to be praised for it. Mrs. Harlan visited once with coffee cake wrapped in foil. Aaron checked in when the county filings moved. No one rescued Nora. That mattered. They helped. There was a difference. Rescue can make a person feel carried. Help lets them keep their feet. One evening, Nora found the old suitcase in the bedroom closet. She pulled it out slowly and set it on the bed. The cracked handle was still there, the scuffed corners, the small dark mark where porch dust had rubbed into the leather. Once, that suitcase had looked like proof that she had been reduced. Now it looked like a witness. She opened it. Inside were things Ray had packed without understanding them. A recipe card, funeral papers, a photograph of Aunt Lottie on the farmhouse porch, younger than Nora had ever known her, and the white handkerchief that had carried the key. Nora folded the handkerchief carefully and took it to the kitchen. The brass key rested in a small dish by the window, where morning light could find it. She placed the handkerchief beneath it, not hidden anymore, held. That night, the wind moved softly over the pasture. The house creaked in its old bones. The porch boards settled. Somewhere near the back line, dry grass whispered against the fence. Nora stood at the front door with her hand on the lock. She thought about the day Ray left her outside. The suitcase, the trash bag, the neighbors who watched, the key that waited at the bottom. Then she turned the lock from the inside. The click was small, but it filled the whole house. Ray had believed one suitcase meant the end of Nora Bellamy's life, but he never knew what was inside it, and he never understood that some women are not thrown away. They are only carried, quietly, to the place where they finally remember their own name. If Nora's story stayed with you, leave a like for every woman who had to start over quietly, without applause, without help from the people who should have protected her, and without losing the decency they tried to take from her. Subscribe for more stories of people who were counted out too soon, then found the one thing nobody could take. And tell me in the comments, was Nora right to shut Ray out for good, or would you have given him one chance to apologize?